The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 120.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hey everyone, I'm Thomas Sanjurjo, aka The Ronin, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away, including the deeper themes and meanings. Today we're going to be discussing episode 3 in the series Obi-Wan Kenobi, streaming on Disney+. And joining me today on the panel is Old Ben himself. But don't get too excited, it's just Mike Creavey. Hi, Mike.
Hey, and here's the thing. I can talk about it later.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's make sure we bring that up. It's his deli. My
deli ticket.
So we're gonna deli ticket. We're gonna have to go through that. And also joining me today is another Mike, Mike Denz. Hey, Mike.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you. So Isabella wanted me to remind you that you had been on the show before. We had you and I talked an episode of The Bad Batch together. So.
Yeah, it was just the two of us.
Not a newbie. Yeah, it was just the two of us, I think.
It was just the two of us, and I mean, I wasn't proud of my performance. Maybe that's why I forgot it. I was, it wasn't my strong point, but I think I did okay. But I redeemed myself with the first. We did the first two episodes of Kenobi together with some of the announcements from the event.
Celebration,
yeah. That Star Wars made recently, about a week or so ago. Right. And it's all a blur. I've been doing so many podcasts in the past 10 days. I think this is my fourth one in 10 days. It's really weird. Gosh. I usually don't do that many in a row, but I can't pass up the Star Wars offers. It's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. So here I am.
Especially this one. This is a good episode.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the first time a live action suited Darth Vader has had a lightsaber duel since 1983.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's
I hadn't thought of that.
I was just when I was 12. So I'm like, this is a major thing. It wasn't a very good showing on Obi-Wan's side. He's really it's when it comes to, I know we're going to get into it, but when it comes to the suited Vader and Obi-Wan, Vader 2, Obi-Wan 0.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. So Mike mentioned that he was on last week for the episodes 1 and 2 discussion, and Mike Creavey, this is your favorite character from Star Wars. So how'd you feel about episode 1 and 2? I want to hear about that.
Of course, I had to miss the first two episodes. Yeah, right? I was thrilled, to finally be here. I've been doing a countdown on my board in my classroom for the last 2 months. So having the day-by-day countdown. And, I think for me, I just, I agree with a lot of what was brought up, in last week's episode. For Ewan, I mean, it's I didn't have any trouble, sort of picturing him as Kenobi. I mean, he's right back in the role, and I think it fit. I don't know. It didn't really surprise me too much where they had him at, and I know there was controversy at first, or some people were trying to be like, oh, this is going to be just like Luke in Last Jedi. And it's like, no, it's like you expect Obi-Wan to be like this. I think everyone, we were upset with Luke, many of us, because it's like the last time you saw him, he was like the symbol of hope and all this. And then the next time you see him on screen, he's like that. And it's like, But this, I think this is what I basically expected, more or less. I don't know how much I'm really intrigued by, and you guys got into this last time, this, is it more that he's committed to the Luke mission? Or is it that he's afraid and hopeless, or is it both? And I'm kind of, I think it's a little bit of both, because I definitely think some of the things he says, like he says to Leia, about what the Force is like, his talk to Owen about, the boy has to be trained. Like, he clearly hasn't given up, but just how much does he believe it's going to do any good, so.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell, I guess. And since we've had 3 episodes in a row where they spend like obvious time on him trying to contact Qui-Gon, I feel like they've got to deliver here on Liam.
Yeah, it's got to happen.
I kind of feel like maybe the next episode, as sort of you've reached your lowest point. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he hasn't yet. So.
Yeah, and they've been really tight with the casting and with revealing who's been on the cast. And I think there's even some subterfuge going on with that still, because IMDb only lists anyone related to Darth Vader as 1 episode.
Right.
And I think that's just because they know he's in 1 episode, but they're not sure about the rest.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, technically, he was in the last shot of 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When Obi-Wan found out that he was still alive, and then it ended on like almost like the Luke Darth Vader connection at the end of Empire, when he's like saying father and Vader replied son, and
right.
And he shouts out like Anakin, and then you see Anakin kind of respond into his tank.
I jumped. Like, because it's coming, but just like, oh man, that moment, especially like that's Hayden, like, oh my gosh, we've known, but man, that was an awesome moment, and a similar one in this one, of course, we'll get to, but
right. Yeah. So before we dive too deep into the synopsis, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to continue the secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest. This week we'd like to call out Joe B, Joey C, Kelly W, Curtis C, and Teresa M. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of Star Wars and all the shows here at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Okay, so I'm going to save the opinions section. Normally we start off with like saying, hey, what was your opinion of the episode? I'm going to save that for while we talk, because I'll be honest, there were some things that I think went really well in this one and some things that I did not like and am going to hash out while
I'm curious. I've been curious all week.
I know I mentioned it in the channel, and it's like, what happened? What happened, Thomas? But I was really like, I walked away from this one not sure.
I go back and forth a lot on some things, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, so let's go into it. So we're gonna start off with the synopsis, and I think this one opens really well. I love the opening. We open on the mining ship. Obi-Wan is kneeling, and as you mentioned, he's trying to contact Qui-Gon and trying to get him to answer, and he's listening for the voice, and you can tell. But what he keeps hearing is Reva's taunting him, and then he hears Yoda's advice. And he hears Qui-Gon imploring him to train Anakin, but it's a memory, not like Qui-Gon actually speaking to him. And this is all kind of overlaid with this feeling of Anakin maybe across space getting ready himself. And so he's being suited up. He's being loaded into the suit. And as Obi-Wan's meditating, we see the suit being placed onto Anakin and him becoming Darth Vader. And it's almost like they have this like connection, like you were saying, where they connect to like Luke and Vader connect later on. So I agree. I think we're going to see Qui-Gon sooner rather than later in this. And I'm waiting for that moment. That's going to be, we need to get there. And then, and I liked here too, this for me, the comparison to Rey later. So in the Force, or in the last movie, when Rey has all of the Jedi speaking to her as she's prepping to defeat the Emperor, this is kind of that, but in that more inside of his own head kind of way, where he's got all these voices that are speaking into him, and I really liked that comparison. I thought that was really interesting. And then we get the scene where Reva is speaking with Vader on Mustafar, and that was. Took us back to Mustafar, took us back to the throne room with Vader. And as he's speaking to her, he seems convinced that he knows what she wants. And I'm still not convinced. I still think that there's something going on.
I really do. I think that's where this is headed.
Yeah.
It was really when she goes in to talk to the other Inquisitors, and it was, I think, a big moment of wonder with everybody when he said, "I'll get what I deserve, and so will you." And she's like, "I hope so." And everyone's just like, "What does she mean?"
It's really pensive.
Weird. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was something more going on there. I mean, there's a little bit of maybe we're reading into it, but I don't think so.
I can't believe I really don't think they would ever do this. But if this builds up to some sort of like Obi-Wan and Vader need to work together to defeat her, I'm like, no. I can't believe anyone would ever do something, because that would just be absolutely ridiculous, and cartoonish.
I hope they don't do that. Yeah, I think there's so
but
much.
I think you're right though. Yeah, something to it.
Yeah, well, and I think you can make her seem really powerful by taking on Obi-Wan. Like she needs a direct duel with Obi-Wan where she possibly beats him, but maybe is turned in that for some reason. She's turned from what she's planning. But then she ends up beside Vader, and she could have that fight with Vader directly and just be completely wiped. I think that you would still get a great use of this character out of seeing that entire arc. But then there were some people that were saying that they were upset that she might turn, like she might come back to the light. And I was like, that would be perfect. That would be
that's
having
never
a micro redemption story. Yeah,
it
would be fantastic.
Well, because I think if you're on the right track with her, where she's complicated, because the thing is, she's not good. Like she's definitely like doing, like she cuts an old lady's hand off. Like she's whatever her intentions are. Well, oddly enough, isn't it what Liam Neeson said to Christian Bale in Batman Begins? Whatever your intentions originally were, you've become truly lost. Right. I think it's something along those lines. Maybe he'll appear to her. No, but I think I'm assuming. I think everybody's assuming either she, at least fans of Rebels, you never see her. So it doesn't mean that she's not still around, but I've been assuming
you also
this whole
see
time.
the Grand Inquisitor, and he's
that's true.
Apparently dead, so I don't know, whatever.
So yeah, so we don't know what's anymore. We don't know what's going to happen to her. We know she doesn't appear in Rebels. That's about it. Right. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'm intrigued. I really like the character. I think she's really interesting. There's a lot going on here that I think would be really good. Now, this scene is exactly how I pictured Vader showing up in this series. Like him being on Mustafar, directing kind of what's happening, but not being directly involved. And so that's kind of it plays forward a little bit, but this is exactly what I was expecting. And so I was totally happy with the scene. I thought it was really good. And then we go back to Obi-Wan on the mining ship as they're traveling along, and he's tinkering with something. We don't know what it is at the moment. And he's talking with Leia, and she asks what the Force feels like. And I thought that was just such a beautiful moment where they have that discussion about what the Force feels like. And he asks her if she's ever been in the dark and how she felt. And then when a light was turned on, what did she feel then? So she felt afraid in the dark, but then safe with the light on. And that's what he says the Force feels like.
I was glad that it wasn't like a direct, she's like, can't you use the Force and make this ship go faster? And I'm so glad he didn't be like, that's not how the Force works. Because it's like, no, that's how Han says it. Like, that's not how, but still that same idea of the mystery of it, and yeah, that was a sweet little exchange, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Just before we go past the Mustafar scene, Vader gets up and looks out one of the parts of his long panoramic window, and it's presumed he's looking at where he burned, and Obi-Wan left him, that he likes to stand there and look at that to fuel his pain and rage, which is a good way, like I'm going to go reminisce about Obi-Wan a little while before I go out and meet him.
Right.
Hey, I love that stonework, by the way.
Yes.
It's awesome.
It's minimalist. Construction is amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. It's very brute. There's like this whole movement that was brute movement, and it was these deep concrete structures that were just bare, So I love it. Yeah, definitely. And as Obi-Wan turns around, we see that he's fixing Leia's little droid sidekick Lola and hands it to her, and that was really nice. That whole thing was really nice. But I thought this was a really great moment to look at the deeper side of Obi-Wan too, because if that's what the Force feels like, imagining him having been without that for 10 years is intense, right? So he's completely put that aside and abandoned using the Force, and that's got to be hard. That's got to be incredibly damaging to a person's psyche. You know, you've essentially turned off the light and you are in the darkness.
He's in that
fear.
Yeah.
It definitely seems that way when you're trying to figure out where his head is at, as far as what we were talking about. Is he trying to just be secretive for Luke's safety, or is he afraid? And also, you know, we talked about, is he traumatized from what happened at the end of episode 3, the movie, not this episode we're talking about,
right.
Revenge of the Sith, and even 10 years later, still having nightmares and thinking about, you know, his brother, his best friend, you know, turning like that, and what happened. So when he has that encounter with the young Jedi that ends up getting killed on Tatooine, that's where you're kind of like, wow, that was just kind of dark and really just he's despair, you know, like, oh, the fight's over, we lost, you know, just bury that and forget about it, it's over. And, you know, is he just trying to save him and make sure he doesn't stir up more problems, or is he really feel that way? So as we go into this episode, I don't know that any of those questions are being answered just yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they're actually digging more into them. You know, it feels like they're just kind of bottoming this out before they give him an arc back up. So we get the scene of Mapuzo when the ship is coming out of hyperspace and landing on this new mining planet. And I love this ship. The design of the ship is so good. It feels like a real Star Wars ship. It's chunky. It's weird. It doesn't fit physics at all. It doesn't make any sense, you know, but it looks awesome. And it lands, and we get to see a familiar droid, which is the R5 droid hanging out there, tinkering with something on the dock, and also a new droid that we haven't met yet, and we do later in the episode. So I thought that was really neat. And
I like that one. That's a neat Halloween costume.
Yes. Oh man, it's so great. Yeah, I would love to play that guy. It's really cool. So anybody who's into like building foam core armor, that's a win. And they even have like the built-in screen where his neck is. So if you're not tall enough, you can put an animatronic head on it and just look out of that spot in his neck. So to me, Mapuzo reads kind of like a Kurosawa setting. Like this is really back to that, a throwback to those original settings of like the Akira Kurosawa samurai movies. And you have these imperial flags, these foot soldiers that are harassing the locals. Everything's really desolate. The people seem really desperate. And as Obi-Wan and Leia are walking along, we get to kind of experience this good old classic Star Wars setting where everything is based on that Imperial taking over. What do you guys feel about this setting?
It was interesting because I don't remember the symbol of the Empire being prominent. I know it was there, but it never occurred to me when I was younger with the first 3 movies and everything. And now it's on these flags, like a Nazi swastika would be on, you know, just a banner, you know, just to remember we're here at these different outposts, and has that's what it reminded me of, that kind of style. And yeah, you know, the troopers they encounter on their way and stuff. You know, you get for me a sense of like just, you know, World War II. I don't know. They're just guys that are just on patrol and like, oh, good, somebody can give us a ride, you know,
right?
And just jumping on, you know, the back of a transport. You know, it had a very, it was all made sense. It just was very realistic in what you would imagine something like that would be.
Well, I've always I don't know what it's supposed to be, but the Imperial symbol really reminds me of like a gear, you know. And I don't know, there's just something to that, you know, like a very...
Like you're a cog in a machine, right?
You know,
it's just going to be ground down.
It reminds me of what, you know, Tolkien has that line about Saruman, his mind is all metal and wheels. You know, that just... And he's destroying all that's good and natural. And, you know, there's definitely something to that, I think. You know, there's you know, the Emperor's... That line he repeats because it's so important in the prequels and the sequels. You know, right. The dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. And it's like, you're all about that. You know, you are like fundamentally about warping the Force to your will. And I mean, that the whole thing is right there, you know, like the whole story. And so, I think that And I noticed that we haven't gotten to him yet, but when you see the banner on the back of the truck and it's like painted, I thought that was a neat touch, you know, that it's like he made that was kind of my interpretation of it, you know, and it's really meticulous. It's really well done, but it's you can see it's handmade. And that was kind of a neat sort of tactile thing.
He's an interesting character, so we'll get to him in a minute.
Cameo.
Yes, very good cameo too. So deep cut if you know who it is. So and I think this part here too is the part where he's talking to Leia. He snaps at her a little bit, saying that not everybody's good because you know they can't know whether these coordinates that are given to them by Haja Estri in the previous episode are any good. He doesn't really trust anyone, and you see that he's got this deep-seated lack of trust built into him now. But he also has this vision of Anakin, and we were all reminded, everybody in my house was like, whoa, that's just like that scene in The Passion where Jesus looks over and sees the Satan figure that's standing there, and it had very much that feel, even on a second watch, like going through and he's got his face half covered as he turns to look at him.
I don't know, but I want to turn myself in on this because I felt so stupid. It wasn't until the second time I watched it that it was just abundantly clear that it was Anakin to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, because the first time I saw it, I was just, I'm really trying to take everything in. And like, I guess at that moment, my mind was just really, for whatever reason, stuck on like just Obi-Wan, like in a general way, being very messed up and like wondering about who survived and who didn't, and just like seeing a Jedi. And for some reason, it was so much easier than that, and I didn't put it together. Also, I think it was very far away, and you couldn't see him super clearly. I wonder if they had zoomed in just a tiny bit, you know. But it's clearly him when you look closer. Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell. But was there a musical cue at all? I think that would have helped because I think so. Like we were just like, oh, who's that? Still. Yeah, it was like, oh, there's some guy. Yeah. He kind of looks like a Jedi, and then he turns, and my daughter and I are like, I think that's Anakin. But you know, I mean, not until they zoomed in, and it was really quick. And like you said, on the second viewing, I was like, okay, I mean, I already knew it for sure it was him, and I could see clearly it was him. But it was not. There was no like. Musical cue to kind of help you know that this is a dark.
They should have had it. They should have had him like angrily like kicking sand away from himself.
It gets everywhere.
Ew! Like that's him. No.
What is it with him having to show up on sandy planets, man?
Oh my gosh! I'm sorry, Hayden. We love you. I'm just messing around.
To him all the time. So from here we cut back to Revan. I thought the juxtaposition of the dirty troopers that have their nice white uniforms completely wrecked, and the troopers that are on the Fortress Inquisitorius who are perfectly clean, right, was great. That was like a really classy move on their part. But I love the Fortress. I thought it was so well designed. Lots of throwbacks to Clone Wars. But still kind of a new thing that we see as different. That's definitely dark, definitely Sith, definitely Imperial.
What was that metal detector thing she walked through? I was waiting for it to go off or to do something. I'm like, what is that? Did you have any idea?
No, it was just there. It was just look cool.
It was just there.
Like if you're not an Inquisitor and you go through it,
you get blown up or something. I don't know.
It turns green instead of red, right?
Yes.
It's like it's red and it turns green.
It's a more elaborate. It's a more elaborate version of Obi-Wan's R2 arm coming out and telling him if there's an invader.
Yes, that was fun.
But that whole the scene, the throne room that she goes down into, or the meeting room that she goes down into, that's like underwater.
That was so cool.
That was really cool. That
the underwater thing was neat.
And this is where we get that interaction between her and the fourth brother, where he says, "You'll get what you deserve, or I'll get what I deserve, and you'll get what you do too." And she says, "I hope so. I certainly hope so." But it's so cryptic, and it really feels like there's something more.
That's the first time he really showed. Like he's mostly just been like angry at her and grumbling. And some people I know are criticizing, like, he was a pretty formidable character, in Rebels, and which is, a few years after this. So you could say, well, he's stronger, but it's like, he's already said, I think in the first episode, he told her that they've been looking for Kenobi for 10 years. She seems like she's a newer addition to their team. So like, he's been around for a while, and that's just how effortlessly he's just like, like has her like stretched out like that by the table, like in a heartbeat. That was kind of a neat touch,
I thought he was almost trying to be helpful to her. Like, let me give you some good advice. Just, you know, in the first two, and this one, and this is another thing where, you know, compared to anybody formidable, she's weak. I mean, he just kind of like flattens her in that, you know, Mission Impossible kind of position over the table. And, you know, and seems like she might be smarter than everybody else. As far as her force abilities, you know, not real impressive. I mean, no one's been impressive versus Obi-Wan. So her chasing him around isn't really much to think about.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting also, like, I don't know how they number the brothers and sisters because, you know, he's the fourth brother, she's the third sister. And that's like, well, shouldn't she be next in line if they're numerically?
That must not be that many sisters
numbered that way. I mean, I'm trying to figure out like what's the order here.
I found a chart online, but there wasn't even like an equivalent for each one necessarily that we know of, at least. So yeah, I was trying to be like, you know, how many of them were in? It's like I remember he was in Rebels. The Grand Inquisitor was obviously. Sarah Michelle Gellar's character was, you know, and whoever this other sister is right now was not, I don't think, or at least if she was, she had a mask on or something.
Yeah.
And there's some in the games.
There's some in the games, yeah. So Fallen Order had a couple that were pretty significant, and so yeah, I don't know the number. I want to know more about these guys though. Like you know, I brought up last time that it's like the sons that Anakin or the children that Anakin never had, right? Yeah, and I would like to know more about this organization, and I'm really hoping that we get a deeper dive into what's going on with them.
I think we all kind of like, if you remember in Rebels, you know, there's that little clue they give you. I think it's after the Grand Inquisitor is dead that they have that weird vision training thing with Kanan, where then he's like knighted, and then you sort of see in that scene that the Inquisitor had been one of the temple guards. But I don't. I think when Obi-Wan mentioned was it Dayu? Was that the planet they were on where he saved her, Leia? It was Dayu or something like that. Because that's I think when he tells her at the spaceport, just flat out says that, you know, many of them used to be Jedi. Like that was the first time I think I ever remember hearing that just flat out said that way. You know, that's who you're dealing with here.
Right. And we still don't know where Reva comes from because they picked her up out of the gutter, right? It wasn't that she was one of the younglings that they brought in. Right. And so yeah, it's adding more to my theory that I really do think that she's after. She's there because she wants revenge. So back to Ben and Leia, and they get to the rendezvous point. Nobody's there, and Ben, it feels like they've been set up. He is just pretty convinced that this was a lie, that nothing was going to happen, or that something bad is going to happen. And so he tells Leia, okay, look, I'm a farmer. You're my daughter. You don't talk. And she asks the question, I can't talk, or I don't talk. And he said, you don't talk. And then immediately she turns around and flags down the closest transport she can. And notably, she's the one that does the talking, which is just
tremendous
classic.
Missed opportunity, by the way. I could not believe they didn't have Ewan say hello there. I was like,
well, that was he just said hello because his confidence is still shot.
Right.
So he's not doing the hello there. He's just like,
he's
hello.
Ben. He's not Obi-Wan. No.
Exactly. That's what's going on. He's got to get it back. He's lost his mojo.
He's lost.
He needs to recover his mojo.
Oh my gosh, I've got an Austin Powers reference coming up soon too. Funny enough.
Excellent. So she flags down this alien that we surprisingly do not have a name for what type of alien he is. It's just.
He looks like a mole. I mean, his mouth definitely looks like a mole.
He's a naked mole rat.
A star-nosed mole. Star-nosed mole is what this one is. And his name is Freck, which is so close to Fred. It's wonderful. I loved it. And it's voiced by Zach Braff. This is the deep cut that I know you were bringing up, Mike, just a minute ago. So if anybody knows Scrubs, you know who this guy is. So I love this scene, though, because Leia is the one that just completely takes over, and she does all the talking. She keeps the lie level. She doesn't, exaggerate too much. And I love even it's so simple that he like looks at her and he goes, well, that's a weird story. Freck that looks at her is like, that's a weird story. and so Ben has to elaborate a little just to give the lie some credibility. And that whole scene's excellent. And then when they hop in the back, we see the flag that he's colored himself to show that he's loyal to the Empire. And along the way, they pick up some more stormtroopers. Now, I don't know if you guys had ever seen it. Have you seen the YouTube shorts that were called Troopers?
Yes.
They were like based on Cops.
Yeah.
The TV show.
I've seen a little bit.
That's what I felt was going on here.
Yes.
Like I got some definite like Cops vibes where these guys are like interrogating them as they're riding along, and they're stormtroopers. You know, they're not the most competent of units in the galaxy. So I loved seeing that. This whole segment was just really good.
And it ends up being Obi-Wan who messes up by calling her Leia.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
he's so far from his whole, like, just, you don't need to see his identification. Like, just, it's not even, it's like the pitch meeting guy would say, you know, super easy, barely an inconvenience. Like, Obi-Wan is, like, he's scared of these guys. And I'm like, he won't be in 9 years. I'm like, but he is, okay, all right.
Yeah, you got to separate him from. You got to separate him from both ends. You know, it's he's not the man he was. He's not the man he's going to be. He's definitely got some growth that he has to go through. And I love that scene when he messes up. He calls her Leia, and then he has to justify it by, you know, saying, "Oh, well, that's her mother's name." I get confused at times. And then he looks at her very intently when he says, "When I look at her, I can see her mother's face." And she picks up on that. And the interaction that they have afterwards is great.
Oh my gosh.
It's another force sensitive Leia thing, because no 9-year-old is going to be like, you know what? I think I figured this out. You know, she's her precociousness as well as her force sensitivity.
Not that insight to, I mean, she's like the lie, the story, the cover, that part's true. That part's true. Let's go back to that.
Right. Let's talk about that thing. Yeah. And she pushes him on it. And I love it because he gives us a look into him because of that. And so we get to hear about the fact that he has a brother, and you know, that he was taken before he really knew much more than that, but he does remember having a younger sibling. And then he's almost like, you know, regretful of the fact that he didn't get to know him any better.
Yeah, the way he talks about, and I never get quite used to it. Like, the Jedi take children. You're like, oh gosh, you know, and it's just kind of what we do. It's just how it works, and the sadness of that. But we get a new family, you know, and so they're okay with it. It's really, and the other part is we get closer, and she hasn't seen Vader. You know, I don't think. Well, no, was she watching? I know we're not getting into it, but I guess
I don't think she actually sees him.
I don't know if she sees him, but I know I'm getting ahead of myself. But I'm just thinking she's already established that you know my mother. Now it's even to you know my father, and you know, obviously they're never going to get to the point where she says like, yeah, that crazy guy in the mask is your dad, but you know that he knows him too, and the different kind of face he'll show, or you know, her when I knew your dad is. I'm wondering if they're going to get to that too.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. We'll have to see how far they take that relationship.
Right.
And I do really hope we get more Obi-Wan and Leia, because I don't think, and I'm pretty sure we do, because there's got to be a reason. This to me was showing me that what they're doing with this show is they're justifying the whole help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, right? And that's what she's, you know, that's what they're doing with this whole sequence. So we have to see the two of them end up back together, which is cool. So then they get to this checkpoint, which that felt awfully familiar, didn't it, Mike? From our role-playing session, where it's like, oh, it's the Stormtrooper checkpoint. Look at that.
Yes, it did.
I was like, oh, and they're even in like a transport that looks just about what I was imagining and everything.
Like, where's the Bothan? No, he's not there. That's all right.
And so the troopers call in a probe droid, because Freck kind of fills them in. Hey, you need to check these two guys out.
That's when we realize he's really not just a nice guy giving a ride.
He's not just that guy. So, and this is the thing, I wanted to talk about him a little bit, because he's really interesting, because I think a lot of people are like, well, obviously the Empire's bad, right? And it's easy for us watching the movie from the outside to go, obviously the Empire's bad. But there are people like this that learn how to fit into the situation that they're given. And the comments that he makes about it, he likes the order that the Empire brings, right? It makes it easier for things to get done. He doesn't have to drive along the road worrying about people robbing him because there's Imperials all along the way. Sure, he probably has to pay taxes. Sure, he has to follow laws that might seem strange, but things work for him as long as he knows how to fit into the situation that he's given. And for every person that we see in the resistance or in the rebellion, there are millions and millions of people that are like this, where it's like the Empire just is, that I don't question it because it just is. And barring an encounter with Vader, which very clearly shows the Empire is absolute evil, which we see later in this episode. I think a lot of people would feel that way, right? Where it's just, they're the governing body. I don't really, I mean, they are unfair, but what am I going to do? And
there's also a presumption that the governing body has got my best interest. I mean,
right.
Well, it sounds like some sort of conspiracy theory to think that there's actually some evil wizard that, somehow put this grand plan into motion to rule the galaxy. I mean, give me a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
That doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, even Leia at the beginning of the episode, that's one of the questions she asks Obi-Wan is, well, I thought the Empire was doing good for people. And he says, well, your dad is, but that's not everybody, and that's kind of the conceit that you have to really buy into the whole thing, and you have to be really exposed to the bigger picture to understand it.
I had to check my character names here before I made this reference because as listeners to this show know, I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars Resistance. However, I do. There's a scene in there where, and that's taking place 30 years after, but it's basically, is it coterminous? Is that the word I'm looking for? It's a contemporary episode with, or a series with the sequel trilogy. So it's 25, 30 years after the demise of the Empire. And so there's a scene in that show where somehow the Empire comes up, kind of retrospectively at the dinner table. And Tam, the one mechanic character, starts getting on Jarek, who's kind of their boss. Like, she's getting on his case, and he's older and he remembers what it was like. And he's saying nasty things about the Empire, and she gets all kind of offended because he's basically comparing the First Order to the Empire. And like, that's why we shouldn't follow them. And she's sort of sympathetic to the First Order. And her argument is, like, my grandfather worked in like an imperial like munitions plant, or I don't think it was a munitions plant, but it was some imperial plant or facility, and he put food on our table and he wasn't evil. And it's one of those things. It's like there's some logical fallacies in it, but it's a challenging argument too, because it's like, he doesn't know what to say. And he basically just says, Tam, you're too young to understand. And what does that do? But it makes her mad. She runs away and she joins the First Order. And then she eventually kind of learns what's going on there. But it's I think, you're dead on, where it makes you think about, like, I mean, how many people got, tied up with Hitler Youth and stuff, or were forced into it, like, Pope Benedict was, and hated it and didn't want anything to do with it. And you still have people decades later trying to use that against him, and so it's a big, messy thing. Any way you look at it, when you get these in real life, these empires like this, so I like that they're exploring that.
It's interesting too with what you're saying. Like, of course, some think that the Empire is, it's good, right? Or vice versa. And, a lot of times in most Hollywood produced shows, it's, well, of course, like, Republicans or conservatives are evil, right? We just know that because, it's kind of like presumed, and the good guys are usually the more liberal ones. And then you got both sides comparing the other side to the old Nazis, the way you were describing them being, well, they're not like the Empire. Like, no, you can't tell me that's horrible to say that such and such is like Hitler. It's not like that. So you get and you get people who live through communism or World War II or whatever saying, you don't understand, what things are really like. So it's interesting how it's a little bit mirrored in this situation.
Yeah. And we even get another character very soon that came into the Empire because they had good intentions,
right?
Or what she thought was good intentions, and then she backed out. So we'll actually, she comes up right now. So there's a big shootout at the checkpoint because a probe droid comes in and recognizes Obi-Wan, which I thought that scene was really great. That's kind of a throw across to a few other different areas of identification like this, where the probe droid zooms in on his face and then like turns red to signify that it's seen him, and then he shoots it and then shoots the two stormtroopers really quickly.
And it turned out to be a big mistake for him to wait that long. He should have taken out that probe droid before recognizing him.
This is something my wife and I like we pointed. I think one of you guys mentioned this last week too, but it's like, Thomas, did you mention it? Like when he's leaving Tatooine and it's like, okay, I don't want anyone to know I'm a Jedi, so let's dress exactly like everyone thinks they look, you know. And then sure enough, like, you know,
I'll even put a lightsaber on my hip.
You know, and like he's sitting in the back, like, oh, we're going to be inspected. You know, we're looking for a Jedi. He knows they're looking for a Jedi, so he puts the brown hood up. Yeah. And I'm thinking, but by the same token,
your beard.
Right? By the same token, he gets off the transport, and none of the stormtroopers says, "Sir, pull your robe back, please." Right. He has a blaster and a lightsaber, and like,
right. And he unclips the blaster. He unclips the blaster and puts his hand on it. It's like, dude, how are they not shooting him?
They deserve it.
These are stormtroopers that are like very restrained stormtroopers.
Yes.
They've probably been burned by shooting wrong people a few times, so they're really careful.
Must
they
have
got
or something.
got their body cams on. They don't want anyone getting in trouble. Like, oh, you shot another local that wasn't doing anything.
So the shootout's pretty quick, and I feel like there's been some guff given about the stormtroopers and their aim, but this is a guy they weren't expecting anything. He's clearly got the upper hand on them at this point, and he's faster than they are. Even without using the Force, he's still just faster and reflexively better than they are at all of this combat kind of stuff. Even out of practice, that's just part of who he is.
And it's interesting how bad he is later on, as far as reflexively and how clumsy and stuff. And here, it seems like maybe he's been using a blaster for a while now and has become quite good at it.
Yeah, and he's a Deadeye with it, and so definitely takes it. And there's that really disturbing scene where they shoot the stormtrooper and he falls on the laser fence.
That was my Austin Powers reference, because I could not stop. I was like relentless. I'm by myself watching it early in the morning, and I could not stop making jokes for like about a minute and a half. And it was reminiscent of an Austin Powers when they put the guy's head in the shark tank and they pull it up and it's clearly a mannequin, but the head's gone, and he's just like, he'll never be the head of a major corporation. He's not too headstrong. But I'm sitting there, I'm just like, oh man, when that guy's favorite dessert's a banana split. Oh, talk about divide and conquer. Like there was like 10 things. I'm just going down the list. I'm like, I have to stop this. It's so gross.
But it's it's a laser fence, so there you go. Hey,
I found that honestly, I found that a little less gross than the guy getting cut in half with the eye door thing in Mandalorian in the first scene.
Oh yeah, that was a
little more like, ugh. I don't know, something about lasers it's a little less clean, less graphic.
It's a more elegant weapon for a more elegant age.
Yes, there you go.
This is a more elegant fence.
Yes.
So Leia and Obi-Wan seem poised to escape. They manage to get rid of all of the stormtroopers and break the fence, which is that's a classic Star Wars, right? The switch doesn't work, so let's just shoot it, and that fixes the problem. And so they're as they're running off, another group of stormtroopers comes sailing up in a speeder, and as they get off, they're told Obi-Wan and Leia are told to get on the ground. They do. And then all of the stormtroopers are shot in the back by their officer who got off after them. And the officer explains that she's there to save them and for them to follow her.
She was the original contact, and she was late. She was late getting there, and he had already left.
She wasn't late though, and that's where I'm going to start having problems with the show. So we're going to save that for just a minute, because it doesn't come out. That's what I figured too. I figured like, oh, she was just late. She was just late in getting there, and that's what's going on. But we get a different story in just a minute. So from here, we cut away to another scene of the Inquisitors. They're kind of bickering over who gets credit. The fourth brother has already informed Vader that they found Obi-Wan, and the third sister tries to play off that she doesn't care. So Reva's like, oh, whatever, you can take the credit for it, but we both know who's going to be standing beside him when the time comes, which again tells me that that's all she wants. She doesn't care about being Grand Inquisitor. She wants to be beside Vader. And I really do think it's about revenge. The more I'm seeing of her, the more I'm seeing that. And I really I want to figure out how the Grand Inquisitor's not actually dead, because that's bothering the heck out of me.
He got Darth Maul's doctor to help him out.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Just midsection wounds. I hear you specialize in those.
Just throw him in a back to tank. He'll be fine.
Yeah. Fixes everything.
He bumped into Grogu and just
force you.
Go.
Up to this point, I have no complaints. I really, the episode has been going along pretty well up to this point, but then stuff just starts, at this point, stuff kind of goes off the rails for me. So it starts with this one, Mike, where, Mike Denz, where you were saying that, you know, she came and she was late getting to them. But in this very next scene, they're getting into this little mining town, and she says to them that she had already been to the to the drop-off point, and they weren't there. And then I'm trying to reconcile, why is she going back to the drop-off point if they were not there, and they're running into her going back to the port. So it was really like, this is the point at which it kind of starts getting really confusing to me, where everything is and what exactly is going on. And so that's how this kind of starts. But Tarla, the officer who betrayed her troops, is trying to take them back, and she tells them that she has a transport for them to get off planet, that the Empire's really, you know, kind of locked everything down, but she's got a way for them to get off. And so she's going to try and get them out. And like, this one wouldn't bother me so much if it weren't for the fact that there were a lot of like weird time edits in episode 2 as well. So there's like the whole Reva jumping across the rooftops that takes like an extra 10 minutes than it does Obi-Wan and Leia. And then her running into the false Jedi even after he's already seen Obi-Wan and Leia. And it's just like, everything's like all kind of wonky on the timeline here. But that's kind of where we get started with this. And so Tarla goes into this droid repair facility and brings them in, and we get this really cute scene where before we get to that, Leia apologizes to Obi-Wan and is really sorry for the fact that she ran away. And I had to watch this. I only caught this on the second time. What she's apologizing for is literally the initial running away from her mom that got her caught. And so she's actually having a huge change of heart about this whole thing. And I think it's good that they put it after this firefight, because you see that she's really shooken up now. Like beforehand, you know, she was like, okay. And because I don't think the bounty hunters and stuff bothered her quite as much as this one that was like very much in her face, having a gun pointed at her head. That really like shook her up. And so now she's really apologetic and she misses home.
Yep.
And then they have this cute scene where we get to meet Nedby, who's the loader droid, and she introduces her droid L0LA59 to Nedby, and they have this adorable interaction where we learn that Nedby can't talk, but actions speak louder than words. And then we get this introduction to the path, which I thought was really cool. So they go to this back room, and there's this writing all over the wall, and we find out that Tarla's part of this group that has been moving Force-sensitive people out of the Empire's grasp.
I thought it was, and the reference to Quinlan was pretty cool, because I wasn't expecting it. But Quinlan Voss, you know, I'm sure our fans know, you know, from Clone Wars and other, was it Dark Disciple and then other comics, I think, right? But by the same token, I'm like, if and when, and it does happen, your safe house gets compromised, is it a good idea to have like all of the name, like, you know, Quinlan was here, you know, like any Inquisitor goes in like, okay, he's still alive and she's still alive. Okay, you know, it's like maybe not the best bet. So, you know, but I like that idea that back to the whole Obi-Wan, like, what is he? Where's his hope really at, or what's his sort of take on what his mission is, you know? And he's got a utterly unique mission. You know, it's the same mission Bail has, I guess. You know, and Yoda, who's conveniently not doing anything but just sitting apparently on Dagobah, like, I'm too old for this. I am.
Right.
It's like, what was that? Danny Glover's right line from like Lethal Weapon, where wasn't he always saying that? I'm getting too old.
I'm too old for this.
Father of young Lando. There's always a Star Wars connection there.
There you
go. but no, I was just thinking, like, Obi-Wan's got this unique mission, and he needs to keep it secret for obvious reasons. But I see a little bit of that, like him just getting that sense that here's not just a Jedi in general, right? There's some guy he's run into, but like this is someone he knows, and this is someone who's out there and who's doing this and who's risking his life every day, you know. And I like that little bit of initial or like a continued sort of like motivation, right, for the bigger picture.
And even asks her, why do you do this? And she, you know, she explains that it's for these people.
Now, I admittedly wasn't looking for it the second time either, but how does she know who he is? I mean, was she sent? I mean, is that because she was sent looking for him? That it just seems odd that okay. Yeah,
because they revealed who he was on the bounty hunter planet. And I think
okay. All right. So he revealed who he was to the fake Jedi who set this whole thing up.
Right. He didn't as much as I think Reva
she did.
sent out the bounty for him, and so that's he got the bounty, and it was for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and so then you know I don't think he was the most circumspect of guys. Obviously, didn't seem to be. So he probably just sent along, "Hey, Obi-Wan Kenobi's headed your way. You make sure you find him."
Yeah.
And get him out of there. And so so that's I love the concept of the path. I think this whole idea of like transporting the young force sensitive Jedi away from the Empire and all of the older all of the other Jedi who survive, it's such a great idea. And she even gives us a location that they end up getting sent to. So they all end up getting sent to Jabin. So I have a feeling that's going to be our next destination on this in this series, is that we're going to go to Jabin and we're going to see what
I think she even mentioned that at the end of this episode, that they had to get him there medically, you know, but this it had like Underground Railroad kind of vibes for me a little bit too.
Definitely.
You know, which is
definitely Underground Railroads, and just a slight, maybe because of the name, but how in early Christianity it was called the Way.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So that hit me too.
Or in England, you know, like Elizabethan England, like the priest holes and stuff, like they'd hide, you know, and be able to get priests hidden and stuff. So yeah.
Yep. And so I thought that was really good. And I think the writing on the walls was really good. There is some discussion about what's written there, because you can see a little bit of it, and some people have translated the Arabesh into English. And so apparently it's not, you don't see Quinlan Voss's name at all on what's written. And all you see is this quote from him: "The only when the eyes are closed can you truly see." And then the way is implied, apparently.
Sure. And did Obi-Wan recognize his handwriting or something?
Yeah, and that's what they're trying to say, is that Obi-Wan must have recognized his handwriting or recognized the quote as something that he would have said.
Neat.
So yeah, it's a little more intimate than just like they had their names
that makes
written
sense.
on there. Yep. But there is the resistance symbol that we see later as Reva comes in. She sees not the resistance, but she sees the Jedi symbol and gets really upset at seeing that, which is kind of more credence to that idea that she was one of those younglings in the beginning.
At first, I thought they had to close their eyes to get through the tunnel. Like, and only when you close your eyes and use the Force to get through the tunnel can you really get through.
We're going to talk about that tunnel. We're going to talk about that tunnel. That tunnel is that tunnel's a major point of contention for me.
Yeah. I think I know where you're going with that one. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna that tunnel bothers me because for multiple reasons. There are lots of things that happen with this tunnel that don't make any sense, and I feel like it's just kind of a symptom of the larger problem of the editing that's going into the show, because you know we just had this issue where Tarlo said that she had gone out to find them, they weren't there, and then rather than catching up to her on the way back, they are coming back for them or something. So the only justification I could give for that is that, okay, they had just passed the gate themselves and then heard gunshots or heard blaster shots and had come back. And that's so I was trying to figure that out. I was like, okay, maybe that's what happened. So
or she was headed somewhere else, not necessarily back to where they came. You know.
And it just happened.
It does. It was very. There's got to be something more than it was just fortuitous.
It's the will of the
that
Force.
She found him.
And, you know, there's a lot of that. But this next part, you can't explain this next part. So we'll get to the tunnel. Don't worry. We'll get to the tunnel.
There's some other things that we could talk about before the tunnel.
Oh yeah, there's definitely some other interesting things that are happening here. So we'll go with those first. Charlie realized she's been compromised because she starts hearing the troopers knock on the door and demand to be let in, and they say that they had seen a Jedi come into the town, and Ned B I love Ned B here because he's got can't talk, but he's got that hammer behind his back, like he's ready to use it.
Actions speak louder than words.
Bingo.
There it is.
Now, do you guys have ideas that he's really not just a robot?
That would be pretty funny.
I've heard that, who's the bruiser in Bad Batch? The big guy?
Wrecker.
Wrecker. There's a thought that he's Wrecker. And there was someone else. I can't remember who it is, but they just kind of thought that having for the limited capacity of a lifter who just seems kind of like lost, to be concealing a weapon behind him just in case seemed a little bit much.
That would be cool. Well, it's
so
like the one.
It could be somebody else.
It was a Bad Batch episode where they faked Echo being a droid.
Yeah, and they also pointed out that some of it, I mean, I have to look more closely, but that some of his outfit could look like a clone trooper's, painted over armor in places. So, I don't know.
Intriguing. I hadn't thought about that at all. That explains some other things that bothered me at the end of this episode, but let's get there too. So at this point, we get some background on why Tarla joined the Path and why she was trying to do this, because she had joined the Empire when they stood for something, as she puts it. And as she got further into it, she realized that they didn't stand for what she wanted to be standing for, and admitted that she had made some mistakes. And Obi-Wan says that, we've all made mistakes. And that's where we get the reference that she knows he is Obi-Wan. And she says, well, I can't see Obi-Wan Kenobi making any mistakes.
And he's echoing Bail there, because when he was really resisting going, and Bail's like, we've all made mistakes, get over it, move on. So he's kind of adopting that.
Well, and it's convenient that Leia's not standing right beside him when his name is thrown out there, because she still doesn't know. She still knows him as Ben. She's gone back over to the other side of the room to look at some of the writings with Lola. And then she comes back when Tarla's putting on her blaster and says that she wears it on the other side so that she can draw it quicker. And Leia's like, can you teach me how to use it? It's like you see her like lighting up about this ability to use a blaster. And Tarla mentions that she'll be a good fighter one day. And we were like, yep, I think we can all agree.
Yes.
That's definitely what Leia turns into. And then Tarla opens the tunnels for them. And I'm going to say the tunnel. And I have some reasons why I think it's only one. There's no maze to it. It's just a straight path from here to the port. And that bothers me for a lot of reasons.
Now, this is when Obi-Wan senses Vader. And I thought, I mean, unless there's a reason I'm missing, I thought it was a badly timed. Because I'm like, he doesn't like tunnels. He's claustrophobic.
Right. At first, that was my like.
Yeah, why is he getting a migraine?
Like what?
And then he goes to the door. I'm like, so he wants to leave? Like, nope, we're not using the tunnel. I can't go in tunnels. I had a bad experience.
I'm gonna find another way.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh wait. So it just was another. It was a bad. There was no musical cue. It should have happened in the middle of like a conversation or something to give us a better idea that this was. He sensed Vader's presence and not something else.
That he had been distracted by something, not that he was, not engaged in the conversation that was happening. And
yeah, like something was just in the middle of something and broke it. He's like, whoa, yeah.
I think in my mind, if you had a straight shot at the tunnel with his back to you and he's in the tunnel doorway facing it, and then you have him and he kind of turns toward the camera, right? Like he's doing that really dramatic, like turned back, like that really kind of, but it was like a side shot, look, and he's about to go in, and it was just, I think you're right.
Put us in the tunnel looking at him. Yeah, put us in the tunnel looking at him.
Yeah,
going back the other direction, which was
both times I watched it, I was like, that looks just like a reaction to the tunnel. Doesn't like the tunnel.
And then he goes to the door and he looks out, and suddenly it's nighttime.
Right.
Like I get it, but okay, because what comes next is obviously, but that was a very quick sunset. That's all I have to say about that. And then, and so then we get a shot of the Inquisitors standing at the end of the path, and everything's okay up until this point for me. I was not expecting what happened next, and I am still not at all sure that I like this at all. So, and I'll give you my reasons why in just a minute. Around the corner comes Vader, and he walks down the path towards where Obi-Wan is generally. Now, Obi-Wan feels Vader, and Obi-Wan's been out of practice with the Force for 10 years. Vader has to know exactly where Obi-Wan is. Like there's just no way that he doesn't know exactly where Obi-Wan is. And so you can make the argument that he's kind of inciting him by pulling these people out of their houses and, force choking them and snapping their necks and stuff. But it's almost like he doesn't know where he is. And then every once in a while he catches a glimpse of him with the Force and turns around and looks at him. So this bothers me for two reasons. One, I was not expecting Vader to make this dramatic an appearance in the show, like be on the same planet with Obi-Wan. I was expecting to see him, but I was not expecting him to be on the same planet with Obi-Wan. And two, as we go through the rest of this episode, it ruins one of the poetic moments that I feel Vader and Obi-Wan have, which is to say, they end their relationship in a lightsaber fight. They don't see each other for 18 years, and they pick their relationship back up with a lightsaber fight that ends Obi-Wan's life. And to me, that's a very poetic way for things to be written.
Yeah, I have a couple notes. My first note I wrote down was Vader equals Michael Myers. And that was, and I do, this is going to sound weird in a way, because it's like, don't get me wrong, I know Darth Vader is like the most iconic, villain of all time, but and you figure like Empire, like he's just dropping Imperial, like flag officers left and right, like what does he care about? Apparently there's no repercussions for that. Why are there going to be repercussions for killing people in a town no one cares about, on a mining planet? But I don't know. Sometimes I go back and forth, because it's like, I think he was really like the Vader that confronts Krennic, right, in Rogue One, is this very just, and again, granted, that's many years after this. I think at this point, Vader, I was doing the math on some of these ages and stuff. So at this point, I think at this point, Obi-Wan's supposed to be about like 48, which isn't bad, because I think Ewan's 51, so that's pretty close. And then and I think Vader / Anakin's like 31 or so. He's early 30s. So, but I was just thinking, I'm like, well, I don't know. Maybe he still has some diplomacy to learn a little bit. Like he was never super diplomatic, but I go back and forth on like, does it fit or does it not to have him just brutally be doing this? But I mean, he killed the younglings, for God's sake. So like, it's sometimes I wonder about that, because I don't know, just there's memes going around that are kind of funny. They're maybe a little on the nose, but every now and then, like people criticizing that like Star Wars is for kids thing, and someone will throw in like an incredibly violent scene from one of these shows. So that was one they saw, like him snapping the kid's neck. It's like, yeah, because Star Wars is for kids. I'm like, well, no, it has its dark moments. So anyway, that was just, I was thinking of that, but also what you were just saying, Thomas. I don't want to go into it too much, but for me, it's just my struggle with this whole show, and I do love it, but it's like the way that Alec Guinness sells so perfectly with just the look on his face and him like sitting down in shock on the rock when Luke says the name Obi-Wan. And Alec Guinness, everything about Alec Guinness's reaction and what he says, that's a name I've not heard in a long time. Not 9 years, it's like 20 years, 19. You're like, I haven't gone by that name. Well, people have called him Obi-Wan in every single episode of this show.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's Ben now. And I'm like, so I'm not totally settled yet on that, but that is a little difficult for me, where it's like, it does kind of cut the drama of that re-meeting, I think you're saying, in half. So that is something I'm struggling with a little bit on it.
I hadn't thought of the long time, he said, I haven't gone by the name of Obi-Wan since before you were born. Yeah. So he didn't go by it. Right. But to say that he hasn't heard it, right. I mean, maybe he's, there's just been a few times, so he doesn't really think
like
he's
repeating it. And it's like he literally hasn't heard it in 20 years. He's like, Obi-Wan, I've not heard in a lot. I'm like,
Does when he talks to Qui-Gon, is he like Obi-Wan? No, it's Ben now.
Yeah, no, call me Ben. He's like that friend that tries to come up with a nickname after like summer break, and you're like, no, I'm not going to call you Drew, Andy, or whatever. It's
like my take. I'm a huge like Darth Vader fan. He's definitely my favorite character, of all time, and Everything from his voice to his breathing to his suit, which I own, and everything is, I love it. So just to say the way they did it, him coming around, I loved, like, we're going to show his cape slightly dragging on the ground, just the way it does. And that's Darth Vader and his cape. The way you can show a shadow of Indiana Jones with a hat. You're like, that's Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
We know who this is. And all the little things, you didn't get those kind of shots the last time we saw Vader this much. It's certainly not in Rogue One, and even in the original trilogy, we don't. So I liked that. And then I also this is unique. This is, he's really mad. He's, there's rage, and then there's Obi-Wan rage. There's just nothing that quite matches this kind of rage for him. Because of what he blames Obi-Wan for. Of course, we get that great line of, I am what you made me.
Yeah.
So there's definite there. Now, as far as him knowing where Obi-Wan is, I would disagree with that, because, I mean, he sensed his presence on the Death Star, and he didn't walk in and say he's under the floorboards. He just sent a scanning crew aboard, see what they can find. So he knew Obi-Wan was around, and he waited around for him, but he didn't know necessarily exactly where he was. I mean, you could argue maybe he did, but I don't think the evidence is there. So I think that Obi-Wan knew Vader was present, so he went to the window and he happened to see him. I mean, he knew he was out there, and he knew where he was because he could see him. Vader, I think, had a sense from the Force, this is the direction I need to go in, and but I'm not seeing him yet. So let's see what we can do to pull him out. And he's using the same thing that he probably taught the Inquisitors. Jedi can't help themselves; they're going to try to protect the weak. So let's see what Obi-Wan. I'll pull this guy through the window. I'll snap his neck. I'll grab somebody else and drag him along the ground, and see. And he doesn't care. And he's Vader. Who's going to call him on it? Only the Emperor Tarkin could stop him, apparently. So he can do whatever he wants.
Well, do you think it's a light dark thing maybe too, Mike? I'm just wondering, because it's like, like when Vader senses Luke in Return of the Jedi, like the Emperor's a little surprised because he's like, strange that I have not. Like the Emperor didn't detect Luke and Vader did. So maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's like it's
there's
a little
connection there,
or,
though. I mean, it's his son.
I don't know.
I know him, and there could have been Luke might have been able to block himself from, he could protect his emotions from the Emperor, but not from his father. You have that.
Dad knows.
Your thoughts have betrayed you. I know you have a sister. You hide your. Obi-Wan tells him he guards his emotions well. He's got to keep up on that. So yeah, I just think he's drawn closer to him and is trying to get him to come out, and that's when Obi-Wan realizes I can't go down the tunnel. He's gonna know where I am. I got to let them go.
Yeah, and so he pushes them off and sends them down the tunnel. So he sends Tarla and Leia down the tunnel, and they do, and he draws Vader away. And we see this moment where he goes to basically the rock quarry, right? And he's there, and I love the Force Effects lightsabers that they're using. Yeah. They're amazing.
They are great.
Vader lights his up, and Obi-Wan takes his out. And then runs.
It was so Monty Python. It's like I wrote down like run away.
But what else is he gonna do? Really, at this point, he's definitely not. Like he had a hard time beating Anakin when he was at his prime.
That's what I was saying to my wife. I was like, he knows that was the he's not stupid. He was like, that was the closest he was ever gonna get.
But I mean, Vader's limited though. He's got his suit limits him. I mean, he's modified it since the Emperor made it not so great the first time. It looks different now. I don't know if he goes back to the old way by the time we get to Rogue One and Episode 4, where it looks a little different. But it's looking kind of classy and sleek and very black right now. So there could be that. I'm getting Count Rugen from Princess Bride, just like you killed my father, prepare to die, and he's like, and then he runs away. That's the feeling I got, where it's like, nope, I'm out of here.
Well, and Thomas, I wanted to ask you about the fight choreography, because it was very different style.
Yeah, it is, and you see Ben Obi-Wan's not adopting his normal style at all.
He's on the ground most of the time.
Yeah, well, he's not defensive. He doesn't have his blade up at all. He's exhibiting no control. And Vader, for his part, is only using one hand the whole time. And that I thought was so cool.
And Ben's like got both hands on there pushing, and you're right. He's just like, oh man.
That's like the original fight with Luke. Original fight with Luke in Empire.
That's
Luke
exactly what I was reminded
of.
And
he's kind of like more like fencing very elegantly against Luke and very easily just shoving him to the ground.
Right. Till the end when he gets a little extra mad and comes at him. That's my favorite sequence ever, is just that last sequence in Empire with the two of them. When he's just hacking. It's
probably the pinnacle of lightsaber fighting. And so this one harkened back to that, which is really good. And I think part of that comes down to, like, honestly, part of that comes down to the fact that these things are really lit up in front of these guys. So we're not doing green poles anymore. They're actually using
that was really
lit lightsabers.
Yep. So see that. It was almost like, I'm not sure he can see because there's so much blue in his face when he was looking for him. Like, you got to hold that up above your head or something so it illuminates better. Yeah. But the my favorite was Obi-Wan's holding the lightsaber very weakly, so like it's not strong, and Vader's pounding away at him, and you get the hair in the face and the teeth, just kind of like that almost like suffering Christ kind of look. I don't know what to call it, but it was an excellent like sequence and acting on Ewan's part. You know, just the gritting of teeth and just like he could kill me at any second now, and I'm just getting lucky. Yeah, although there's no such thing as luck.
Well, and you know, because Vader's not trying to kill him, and we see that in the culmination of the duel. Right, and Vader's not interested in killing him. Vader wants him to suffer, and
you've had Ben hiding for 10 years, and Vader's been doing nothing but just fueling this fire for 10 years. So
drawing torture device charts of what he could build.
So like Obi-Wan, not only did he not know he was alive, he can't even comprehend the power level he's at. You know.
Oh yeah, especially with all of the dark side fueling him at this point. It's crazy. And so we get this kind of back and forth cut between the duel that's happening here and so there's three situations going on. We have the duel that's happening here. We have Leia and Tarla running through the tunnel, and Leia stopping her and saying, "You need to go back and help him." She knows that Obi-Wan is not capable of putting up with what against Vader himself. And then we also see Reva come into the droid repair shop, and she finds the secret room and gets really upset when she sees the Jedi symbol, and then she finds the tunnel. And all of these things are happening consecutively. And this is where the tunnel really bothers me, because it is a tunnel. One, because at the point that they're at, Tarla says to Leia, just follow the tunnel and it'll take you right to the port. And goes back to help Obi-Wan, assumedly through the same room that she just left. Reva has just found the tunnel and is headed down the tunnel to try and find them. And we'll get to the end scene in a minute. That's just completely confusing. But yeah, so I would say that Tarla and Reva should run into each other, and they don't.
I thought she doubled back to go around to the port to try to get ahead of them and find where they come out to the port. But then the question is, how in God's name does she know that?
How does she know?
So what's the point of the secret tunnel? Yeah.
The only other thing I could think of besides, and you're right, I mean, I was thinking, is there other passages? But I mean, unless they're, they're far enough along where she can say, okay, we're at the point where you could just follow the tunnel, because we've gone through all the other things, the maze part. Is that, and this doesn't make any sense really, but was Reva running so fast that she
just run right past him?
Forcing her
she was like, oh wait, who's that? I think the explanation is she went around. She could tell somehow to get to the tunnel so she could intercept Leia, or horrible editing, like you said. Like they messed up where they were supposed to be, which I don't know which one's more likely.
Well, and maybe we'll get an answer to it in the next episode, because it does end abruptly at that scene. So maybe we get an answer to it next time. Maybe she did go. Maybe she assumed that that's where they were going. She went to the port, found the only guy that was readying his ship, and was like, "Okay, you're obviously the dude."
Outside a tunnel that looks the same here.
Right. So, okay, fine.
But and we do see Leia though, try to dart back down the tunnel. I don't know how what that's going to do, but she obviously knew what was going on.
Yeah, she could tell that was not kosher. And so I think we've covered all of that. So we'll go back to the duel, and then we'll come back to the close in just a minute. So the duel, like you guys were saying, it's very reminiscent of Empire. There's the back and forth between the two of them, where we find out that, really what Vader wants here is for Obi-Wan to suffer. And so he lights the minerals up. He lights them on fire and then drags Obi-Wan into it and just starts rubbing him around and says, "Now you will suffer, Obi-Wan. Your pain has just begun." And the interesting part here, I think, is that we hear James Earl Jones' voice, but it's spoken. I really think that they had Christian Hayden speak it, and then they had this revoice thing that turned it into James Earl Jones' voice.
I think it is. Yeah,
respeecher.
Yeah.
Well, they did say it was respeecher, but they credited Jones. I mean, he is in the credits as doing it.
I think they did that with Mark Hamill, though, too, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they respeeched him, yeah.
Which opens a whole new, because, like, is it him or not? Because I think that's actually something that is, as the ethics of all of this moves forward. I mean, that's something Jon Favreau talked about. Yeah.
Well, so this is the thing that I thought was interesting here. Like, listening to this, you could hear James Earl Jones' voice, but my head was automatically translating it back to Hayden's.
Yeah, I think it was
the
him.
cadence was just, it felt like the way that he presented Anakin.
Yeah.
As he was going through that kind of crazy split at the end of Sith, where he's just got this angry way of spitting the words, and it's different than what Jones presents with the original Vader. But I don't know. So it was interesting, like, listening to that, because you could hear Christian Hayden's voice through it, even though it was coming through this machine. So that was interesting. But then we also had the actor wasn't even Christian Hayden inside the suit. It was like a body double actor that was inside the suit portraying Vader inside the suit. So it's like this 3-person job to get Vader back on the screen, which is, it's cool. I like it. I like that's the way they're doing. But like this, I don't know, the scene was really interesting because it gave a depth to what Vader is interested in. And then the fire goes out, which...
Wait, I want to get to the letting of the fire real quick.
Okay, go for it.
It just was awkward to me. He's like, it's like when someone holds a gun on somebody and like, I got to bend down and pick up the gun. You just don't move though. And he's like holding him up in the air. He's like, I just got to squat down because I'm kind of tall to light this. Okay. It was not a Vader move. It was not cool. He looked a little weird. So I wish they would have had a longer lightsaber or some better way for him to.
It would have looked cooler if he just literally
like
lit, a very earthly match, just like with his other.
Yeah, anything was better than the slight squat while he keeps his eyes on Obi-Wan. It was just a little weird, but anyway.
Or like Darth Maul, like swinging his lightsaber with those like the sparks and stuff.
Yeah,
right? Like something like that.
Bounce off of it.
Yeah,
that would have been a lot cooler.
Yeah. Well, and so then this is the question I have. So the stormtroopers come up the stormtroopers come up later. So he lets the fire go down.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he put the fire out. Like,
that's
what I got the impression.
He did the force push and shot him like away from it, and I thought that
after he drags him in to burn him.
Yeah,
and he puts the fire out, and the stormtroopers are there, and he says, "Go retrieve him for me."
Mm-hmm.
And then Tarla shows up and shoots the stormtrooper, shoots the generator, and starts the fire again.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then everybody has problems getting through the fire all of a sudden.
Well, stormtroopers are going to have trouble. And I've heard, like, why didn't he can walk through fire? I didn't know this, but I guess maybe you guys are aware of different novelizations and stuff. This suit really just protects him from everything. It's like, he's like Iron Man. I think that he's looking, he knows there's somebody, shooting from a distance. He knows there's now this robot that's picking him up. I think he's saying, yeah, I'm not going, I don't know everything that's going on right now. I'm going to pull back and assess this a little bit better. That's the best thing, whether, that I can think of is why he didn't go and get Obi-Wan.
He's suddenly logical? Like, that doesn't, it's like, there's so many things about this that don't make sense to me. Like, why didn't you put the fire out? Why didn't you just put the fire out?
If the fire was the problem, that doesn't make sense. I mean, they made it look like the fire was the problem, but he's standing there for a little while and he's looking around.
Planet.
right?
That's another thing. Yeah, he lives on a lava planet, but he doesn't like chemical fire.
Right. Yeah, so that's dangerous. Doesn't like sand. This guy doesn't like fire. But no, I this actually leads to, and again, like this could be a whole other thing. I'll just say it quickly because this actually leads to a problem I have that's bigger picture. Because one thing I thought of is, well, maybe like he wants to see how far this goes. Maybe he knows that Reva's found, the kid, or does he not know how she tracked Obi-Wan down? Because I'm backing up here and I'm thinking, if he knows how she tracked Obi-Wan down, he knows that she did it by kidnapping Bail Organa's daughter, and then Bail obviously contacted Obi-Wan, meaning Bail's obviously a traitor, meaning like off with his head. And here's the thing, we know now there will be no repercussions from any of this for 9 years. So you have, like, there's clearly people who know that when something happens to Bail's daughter, the first thing he does is contact Obi-Wan Kenobi, and there's not going to be any. So that's a big, like, problem I have. Because it's like Obi-Wan's secret, identity hiding on Tatooine, I just feel like has been, I don't know. I mean, again, we're halfway into it. They've got to tie this up somehow. I'm not sure how they're going to do that.
I don't know. I see, and this is the kind of stuff though that, like, it bothers me because I don't feel like they've been paying close enough attention to what's happening.
Yeah.
And I mean, I want it to end well.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it through the next 3 episodes.
I think my whole attitude now is I love the show, but I didn't need it. And I'm saying this as someone who, this is my favorite character, but it's like, that's what I was afraid of at first. I was like, am I going to get at the end of this and be like, I could have just done with a John Jackson Miller novel and then nothing until Rebels. And even that maybe was like, Maul finding him. I was okay with that, but I don't know. We're going to have to see.
Yeah. And so then Tarla and Ned B step in, and this goes back to, maybe Ned B's somebody in a suit because he's not the fastest droid.
No.
And he picks up Obi-Wan and walks off with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cut to the other 2 Inquisitors, and they get a comm that they lost him. And the 4th brother's like, oh, well, great. We're never going to find him. And I'm sitting there wondering, like, how did they lose him? How is it was
this really fast droid
fire.
is walking around?
It was a contained fire that Vader can put out with his hand.
That immediately followed Obi-Wan running and not being able to hide. And now he's he's incapacitated, being carried by a slow loader droid. And that's like, well, I'll find you next time, Obi-Wan.
Plot armor, like huge plot armor. I don't know. So
he got a call from the Emperor like, Vader, quit screwing around. I need you back here immediately. Like, oh, okay.
That would have been good. Yeah, something, like, I don't know.
2 seconds to get back to, Coruscant, or you're in trouble, mister. Like,
yeah. And see, this is, I would have liked Reva to be the one that was hunting him down.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the other Inquisitors get involved, and yes, it goes up to Vader, and we hear from Vader,
and maybe he gets injured too, but he gets injured by fighting all 3 of them, and
exactly,
yeah,
and that's as soon as he shows up on this planet, though, there's just so many questions that I have that I feel are like, I don't know where you're gonna go with this, so yeah. And then we get the final scene is Leia arrives at the port, and Reva's there in that kind of big bad wolf, stage where she walks up and she's saying, oh, well, no, the person who was here to meet you, they can't be here, but I'll take you. And then Leia looks over.
Don't
and
I look like a nice person?
The pilot. Oh yeah, you in your black armor that looks just like the Darth Vader. To be fair, she probably hasn't seen Vader, but still, that does not look like inviting armor. And then Leia runs, and so that's where we're going to pick up the next episode. So we'll see how that.
Meanwhile, the worst thing that's happened to Luke is he didn't get his toy Skyhopper yet.
Yes, yeah.
Oh yeah, Lars won't let him have it.
If we were just having fun with like what would you like to see, that like just what really just awful thing would you like to, like if you could just pick something really bad to see in this. that would just ruin everything, but be fun. I gotta say, it would be so funny if like we have this inevitable flashback back to the temple for more of that story. And in the background, you see Jar Jar, who had come over for like dinner just at a bad time, and he's running away with Grogu. You know, if they had the guts to be like, Jar Jar, rescue Grogu from
oh my gosh. Stop giving them ideas.
Just in case they're listening. No, but I do think you're onto something, Thomas. I think this is more than her just wanting the Inquisitor spot. I don't know. I think my guess is you're going to see some sort of Liam presence in the next episode. Would just, I don't know. We'll see. I think that would make the most sense at being able to, because he knows he's got to motivate and get back on par here with where he needs to be.
Definitely, yeah. All right, so any final thoughts?
That and the training montage. I just remember I mentioned that before we recorded. I said, we got to get an Obi-Wan montage, right? You know, he's got to get trained.
Some John Williams equivalent of Eye of the Tiger.
Yes, and Quinlan. Yeah. That'd be cool if he was involved somehow. But
that would be real. That would be interesting. Yeah, I think they need to slow their roll on the number of Jedi that survived Order 66. Because in the Legends universe, that was something Lucas had to put his foot down on. He had to say, look, no more. Stop making people have survived Order 66 or it's not going to have meant anything.
Right.
They killed 1% of the Jedi.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of them were under 4 years old.
Right.
You're like, oh my gosh.
So yeah, so that's I think that's they've got to be careful of that too here, because the more you start pushing that boundary of like who did survive Order 66, the more dangerous it becomes.
Another thing though, they are saying Force sensitive a lot. They're not saying Jedi are getting through. Like the Force sensitives, there's the Empire's looking for Force sensitives and vice versa.
Well, I like I like that because Jedi is a title, not a. It's not just you aren't Force sensitive, therefore you are Jedi.
Right.
So that's a good distinction for them to keep and for them to make.
Which is funny though, because then Ahsoka's out there, but she's not a Jedi.
She's not a Jedi.
But the Mandalorian episode that introduced her to live action is called The Jedi. But that's what he thinks she is. So it's just like, okay, I'm with you. I got it.
Well, there is no Jedi. The only Jedi is Luke. And
said Yoda.
I have, well, let's by the end of of episode 6, that's what it is he's the only Jedi, and then he passes the torch, but he never passes the torch to Ben apparently, and that's part of the reason that Kylo Ren Kylo Ren is created, because he never fully knights Ben Solo.
Right.
And then we see Rey comes up, and Rey becomes that final Jedi.
What he was supposed to be. Yeah.
You're part of the council, but you do not have the rank of master.
That's
not a good thing to do to a Skywalker. They don't like that.
And this is retroactive from last week, but just one thing I forgot to mention is I really thought it was kind of cool, like the little pre-echo, in a George Lucas sort of way of having the sabers buried in the sands of Tatooine, because it was just neat knowing that one of those is going to be back there in a couple decades.
It doesn't get very far.
Yeah, it was just kind of a neat idea, but
cool. Well, that's it from us, listeners. What did you think of Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3? Please let us know. We'd love to hear your take on it. Be sure to email us or comment on our Facebook or Twitter page and let us know. You can email us any feedback at starwars@sqpn.com and find StarQuest on Facebook at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Or you can find us on Twitter at SQPN. You might also like to join us on Discord, where we have a whole channel dedicated to this podcast and also a channel dedicated to Star Wars spoilers more generally. Just visit sqpn.com/Discord to join. Also, be sure to leave a review of the show, because I know all of you are subscribed, of course, so that you can get a ding when we have a new episode go live. But leave a review of the show wherever you are subscribed to it. And that, along with you sharing the show with fellow Star Wars nerds, is the best way for more people to join in with us as we explore these deeper meanings of the Star Wars universe we all know and love. To find previous episodes of Secrets of Star Wars, please visit sqpn.com/Star Wars. So, until next time, Mike Denz, thank you for joining me on The Secrets of Star Wars.
My pleasure.
It's good having you. We're going to have you more often. We're going to work you in here a little bit. All right. And Mike Creavey, thanks for joining us.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait till next time.
Once again, I've been Thomas Sanjurjo. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.